hate the lighting.
Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Security Squawk podcast. This is Brian Horning, and I'm joined, as always, by Randy, Brian, and Reginald. Andre, what's up, guys? How are you today?
Good morning. Good morning. I suffered through that coldness you guys always have, man. It was 32 degrees this week.
Thanks, son.
Well,
it's starting to warm back up.
It's fair.
It's starting to warm back up over here.
2001.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Tough, makes it tough driving sometimes, huh?
Yeah.
Randy, what's up?
Not much. I'm at an undisclosed location right now. The lighting's horrible, so sorry, y'all, about that. But overlooking a lake. Got a beautiful view right now, so.
Not bad. Should have went outside by the lake. Is it warm there?
Well, this room doesn't have that. So the pictures on the internet did, but that's on a different floor. This room doesn't have that. So
got it.
That was my goal, actually.
Got it. All right, guys, here we go. This week we're covering a bunch of stories, 3 of them, in fact, that should make business owners deeply uncomfortable. I guess not scared, but uncomfortable is what I'm going with. Because we don't like to use FUD, right? But this shouldn't make you feel good, what we're about to talk about today. Ransomware, I'm going to get into how it's getting more violent, not metaphorically violent, actually violent. And then the same extortion crew that went after Okta is refining tactics that work even when you lock things down. And personal AI agents are being pitched as productivity tools while quietly becoming security landmines. We're going to get into all that today. This isn't about hackers getting smarter. It's about businesses staying complacent and just continuing to use technology like, hey, it's no big deal. Quick reminder before we dive in, if you like the show, share it with another business owner who thinks cyber insurance or cybersecurity is just your only strategy. And if you want to support the work that Randy, Andre, and I do, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Security Squawk. It keeps us caffeinated and honest, right, guys?
That's right, man. I need to upgrade my water to some coffee.
That's right. So let's get into it, guys. We're going to hop over to Randy first, because Randy was telling us he loves going first. And Randy, I want to start with you because this is the quietest story and probably the most dangerous one, right? And I guess if you're in the AI world, it was not a quiet story. It was like all over the place, right? And it was wild how quickly it went from, oh my God, this is the greatest tool ever, to holy shit. Everyone is chasing personal AI agents right now to automate emails, scheduling, research, even internal decision-making. Cisco is basically waving a flare saying that these tools are a security nightmare. So walk us through why business owners should care before this shows up in their environment without permission.
Okay, so what I'm talking about today is an app that came out about a week ago called ClawdBot, CLAWD, like claws on a lobster, but intentionally made to sound like Claude, the famous AI. So in the course of a few days, they changed their name to Moltbot. They changed their name to OpenClaw. But here's why I had to talk about this today, y'all. So this app comes out. Basically, it can run as a person or an agent. An agent, literally agency, means to work for you or as you or whatever. But it can run as a person on a machine, has access to everything on a machine, all the files, all the command line prompts, all the things you're logged into, your browser, whatever it is. And y'all, it's crazy. It has the ability, you can chat with it, and it has the ability to basically heal itself. It has the ability to make changes to itself, where basically it'll tell you what it needs to be done. You go over there and you code it or whatever. It's like vibe coding on steroids. Had a baby, and that's on steroids as well. It's insane. But here's the thing, y'all. It came out as a product first. And in the course of just a couple of days, we found machines all over the internet that were basically exposed, APIs that were getting leaked out, all kinds. It was a security nightmare. And you know, guys, back when I would say really started talking about it in 2025, when AI kind of hit a watershed moment, all of a sudden everybody knows about it. Everybody's doing something about it. We had a lot of talk those first 4 or 5 months of 2025 about, okay, so where's security going to fit into this? Does it even matter anymore? Do people even care? Y'all, it matters more now than it's ever mattered before, because this is a case of a well-meaning person, as far as we know, who's made a phenomenal product that has no security on it whatsoever at the beginning, okay? And it overnight had like 1 million installs, and, you know, over the course of a couple of days, people are trying it, and I've been using it. It is really, really great. But the thing is, it didn't have any security controls on it at all. It went bananas. A lot of stuff happened. Like I said, APIs got leaked out there. Computers were basically exposed to the internet. It's come around since then. They've learned to be security focused. They've worked with other organizations. They've taken the advice of people, and they've really quickly have become security focused. So here's the thing. Whenever we talk about AI agents, and what I mean by that is agentic AI that's running on a computer, it is a security nightmare. And we've got to approach it from security first. We can't just give it access to everything possible, because even if you trust the AI can be tricked by other prompts to make it think that other people are you. People could get access to that machine and then have the keys to the kingdom or whatever. So whenever we do these kinds of things, we've got to make sure we do them from a security first approach. And we've got to make sure that we don't just give it access to everything. So the way I handled it, I fired one up, didn't give it any access to anything, and then just slowly and surely only gave it access to what it needs access to. All three of us on this podcast, we are experts at giving out granular permissions. Guys, we are. That's like cybersecurity 101. So this is why we need cybersecurity. This is why we need people like us in this space to make sure that we're doing it. Yeah. So even yesterday, there's chat going on behind the scenes. That's why they're laughing. Even yesterday, I got in basically a fairly heated discussion with somebody who was like, no, I can't give access to my whole machine. Okay, what if you started with a machine that had nothing on it, and then you only built up access and only gave it access to what it needs? So I think we ought to have that discussion. But bottom line is, we've got to be looking at, when we're doing AI, we've got to make sure we're doing it in a secure way.
So before I give my points, Randy, two quick clarifying questions. How do you actually access this program? Is it a website, or you have to go through GitHub, or how does that work?
Yeah. So so OpenClaw is available from GitHub. There's a command that you basically run that gives it full access to a machine, and it uses Cisco developed, I want to say last year, Cisco developed skills.md, which is basically a zip file that you load folders, roles, what do you want it to do? It's all in one thing, and it uses skills.md. So there could be skills that would be malicious, so you got to be careful there. Basically you run it from GitHub, and it takes you control of the machine.
Okay, and that's kind of what I was just going to quickly point out, that this is kind of the future of how we're going to see these tools come out so fast, and maybe even faster than the IT department even knows about.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Because I never heard of this prior to you mentioning it.
Right.
Wow. We've been living under a rock.
No, I mean, I mentioned it like day 2. He would have heard of it by day 3 or 4 anyway.
All right, so here's the part I think that should land with business owners. These AI agents, you have to remember that they don't break in, right? They get invited in. You're inviting them in. They're, for all intents and purposes, they're authenticated. They're trusted. If you allow them to interact with your Google or your M365, they're trusted, right? And they don't understand things like context or compliance. So you have to just understand the risk of just going out and running these tools on your real work computer, on any computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are ways to securely and properly test these new tools if you think they're going to help your business. And that's where guys like Randy, myself, our companies, it's where we come into play in this whole game. Is like, don't just go out there and do this stuff on your own, because it's very much the wild, wild west. And you're going to download something and it could cause look, it just happened. It literally last week, we just saw it happen. Like, people were like, within 24 hours went from like the holy grail to like, oh my God, what did I just do? And it wasn't good. And, you got to think about it from a legal standpoint. It's ugly. If an AI agent leaks customer data, the regulators don't care, right?
That's right.
And it was just helping you guys out. It's still your breach, and it's still your liability. And financially, this is, again, Randy, I think we said this many times over a month ago. This is shadow IT on steroids, right? And you just have to understand that, like, that's what this is, and no insurance is going to cover you for stuff like this. So if your CEO listening, and your answer is, we don't use that, or we're not using it in that way, you're probably wrong. Your employees are probably turning to these tools because they're so easy to get your hands on them right now. They're so easy to set up. And I just think about like how the workforce is changing, and these younger kids today are not afraid to run these things and run these tools on their own. So,
yeah. And, this is a far cry from where we were, say, months ago, when it was chatbots, where chatbots, you do control at least what you put into it. Wrong kind of chatbot, you don't control where it goes. But this is different, because these are acting with basically their own, on the authority you gave them, but basically on their own authority. They're acting like that. And it does open up a gigantic can of worms. And, it would be literally like playing with fire, and somebody that didn't know what they were doing could really put a lot of information out there. And even though the organization, I would say, tip of the hat, or the programmer, they've been listening. They have been trying to make it more secure. And, even with all of that, it still takes a lot of technical know-how to make sure that security that they've allowed it now to have, that you put it into to place. So, it is like the wild, wild west, like you said, Brian, big time.
And I'm seeing that there's no official sign in with Microsoft button, but you can have it access your OneDrive. So the AI basically can read all that data. So goes back to restrictions. Actually, the next article we're going to talk about talks a little about single sign-on and the vulnerabilities with that, and also policies and controlling, because IT is dealing with a lot of other stuff, and now that we got to put this AI in place, it's going to be even more. So you got to put policies in place.
All right, Andre, this one's yours when it matters because ShinyHunters keeps proving something uncomfortable. Even when companies improve defenses, extortion still works. This group has hit high-profile targets, leveraged third-party access, and shifted tactics when things got noisy. So break down for us what they're doing differently and why it keeps working.
Man, it's like the simplest crime that you could do. You're a hacker. You simply pick up the phone, call, act as if you're IT. You're telling that employee, hey, we're IT. We need to update your MFA settings. Go to this website. The website has the logo of your company, the colors of the company, and you tell the user, put in the username, put in the password, and put in that MFA code. Right from there, that information goes to the bad guy. He goes in the back end, and it's automatic. It's not even a person. And then from there, they're able to now get into your system. And then from there, they can lock you out. And then going back to that single sign-on, if you have single sign-on for things such as like Salesforce or QuickBooks or whatever app it is out there, you've basically now handed the keys to the bad guys. And this is exactly what's happening in the world right now. Oh, of course, once they get the information, they also are now doing extortion, saying, hey, we have your information. Because, of course, they got to get paid on this, right? They're not just going in to see what type of business you're doing. They want money. So once you're in, they say, hey, we've copied all your data, or we have your data, and unless you pay us, we're going to sell it.
Hey, so Andre, you may not know the answer to this, but we keep hearing Okta mentioned. And is the problem with Okta? I assume it's probably a misconfiguration or lack of configuration, but why do we keep hearing about Okta in these situations? Or maybe Brian would know that question. I just know we keep hearing Okta, like it seems like every other week. And I know they're a strong company, but what's going on?
Yeah, very.
I mean, I think this is where a lot of people miss the point, and especially people in the C-suite, right? When they hear Okta breach, they think authentication problem. But I think when you're looking at it from an attacker standpoint, you just hear supply chain leverage, right? You know where this is being used, you know why it's being used. So if you can attack it, it's a really right place for you to do a lot of bad things, right? If you can attack this one tool that everybody's using for single sign-on, right, you can get into everything that they're logging into, right? And companies really do strive, in my opinion, large companies strive for these single sign-on situations because they don't want all these different logins out there. They want to make it easy for people to use the tools that they're supplying them, right? And single sign-on is part of that. Well, when you have single sign-on, if they can manipulate that, if they can hack it, if they can 0-day it, you're going to run into a problem with them basically getting into everything that you have this protecting. So, one thing ShinyHunters, though, isn't relying on is 0 days. Like that's the important thing to take away from this particular conversation. They're relying on business pressure, things like deadlines, things like brand risk, things like customer trust. Like they're stealing this stuff, right? From a regulatory angle, this is where things like disclosure get messy because if your vendor gets popped and your data is involved, guess who still gets subpoenaed, right? So if Okta does actually have a vulnerability or 0-day and they get popped, you're still responsible, right? So when you choose these tools, right, everybody thinks like, oh, I bought this tool, I hired this company, all the risk goes to them. No, it doesn't. And that's a big misconception that a lot of people have when they write a check to an IT vendor or a software provider or something like that. It's like, oh, well, we just outsource this to them. So it's their problem if something bad happens, or we'll sue them. And yeah, you might be able to sue them and they might, what happens is neither party takes full responsibility for what happened. They pay a little, you pay a little. And that's how this plays out, right? So paying to make it go away doesn't make it go away. It just puts you in a list of people who will pay again with these cyber criminals. So you have to realize that, right? So that's the other side of this when it happens is like these guys all talk and they all know if we can get a company who has the mindset that they're going to pay, let's see if we can get them again some other way.
You know, we talk a lot, Brian, about network segmentation, and you know, companies ought to be thinking about that from their SSO standpoint. SSO means single sign-on. It means I'm signed in to Okta or I'm signed into 365. I can use that to sign into this slew of other, you know, apps that we use. And you know, maybe you don't. I'm just saying this as a thought to IT, you know, CTOs, IT directors, whatever. Maybe you don't put everything into that. Maybe you think through, hey, what if this was breached? What would they then gain access to? Do I need to segment that? Do I need not to allow, not make everything SSO? It is easier, but like what you said, Brian, they get into the one thing, they get into everything. And maybe there's some trade-offs that need to happen between ease and being able to get into every single thing easily, and maybe needing to segment some things and keep them separate from that SSO.
Yeah.
All right, fellas, let's go wrap it up here with the last topic of the day. And this is a topic I want to talk about because I think this is something that should trigger board level conversations immediately. And ransomware isn't just encrypting data anymore. It's now, and when I say ransomware, I also mean, you know, data exfiltration when there's no file encryption involved, right? Meaning like we're stealing files from you, or we're encrypting files from you, and we're going to ask for money, right? Or we're shutting a system down and we're going to ask for money. There's been many tactics used over the years, guys, for these cyber criminals to try to get paid, right? We've talked about it for years and years on this show, different things like, you know, just rating your files and understanding your business and just learning like what you have, what you don't have, how much money you have, and using that as leverage in negotiations. They'll do things like if you're about to sell your company, they'll hit you right before that to get you to pay. They use all these pressure tactics. Now what we're starting to see, unfortunately, is it's escalating into physical intimidation. And we're seeing instances where, you know, it's really happening to CISOs for the most part, mainly because they're the face of the company who has to deal with these threats when they go down, right? So these threats are happening to employees. You know, they're happening at their homes, like letters being sent to them or people knocking on the door and saying things, ring messages being left on Ring doorbells, personal phone calls, you know, pressure that really crosses into real world safety, right? Nobody goes and gets a job to say like, oh boy, I want to get a job in IT and have my life threatened one day. But literally, here's where we are. That's where we find ourselves today. And that changes the entire risk model. Once physical harm is in play, guys, in my opinion, this is no longer a cybersecurity incident, right? This is workplace safety, right? Executive duty of care and potentially criminal negligence if the company handles something like this poorly. And I'm going to rant here a little bit because, you know, too many companies still treat the CISO role like a technical role instead of a risk executive or a C-level person in their company. And, you know, when you're looking at this and when violence is entering the equation, I think that that thinking needs to collapse, right? If an employee is threatened and leadership didn't prepare, didn't escalate, or didn't involve law enforcement appropriately along the way, you literally move from breach response to legal exposure very fast. And cyber insurance doesn't cover bad leadership decisions, right? So boards need to understand this. If ransomware response plans don't include physical security, legal counsel around what to do when you're physically threatened, HR support, and law enforcement coordination, your incident response plans are outdated. And I'm calling that out today here in February 2026. Business owners listening who think this is rare don't know what's going on out there. it's underreported because companies are afraid to admit it's going on.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's you're definitely dealing with now feelings and like you said, you're thinking now family, because if you get an email saying, hey, we locked all your files, you're like, all right, let's get through this. But now if someone is saying, we know where you live, we have your address, you don't know what these bad guys are capable of doing, what connections they have and things like that, especially if, at the end of the day, they're obviously they want money, and with money, people get desperate. And again, now it's like, wait, I'm working at this corporation. Then they didn't do what they needed to do. Now they're claiming that they know where I live, or they showing me my address, and they know my family and things like that. Nobody wants, like you said, Brian, nobody wants to deal with that. So, but then that's when like the feelings get more, it gets a little more emotional, and now they're more inclined to pay because, like, hey, we got to get rid of this problem. So it's definitely a better, unfortunately, it's like a better way for the hackers to get money. And I guess it's going to, if it's working, it will only increase.
And we've seen over the past several years, I think you mentioned this at the beginning of what you were saying, Brian, we've seen little inklings of this coming out where, they're doing other tactics. We've called them psyops in the past, where they're doing other tactics. This is becoming more and more real. And I feel like, if you're one of these criminal organizations and you're just stealing money, you're going to fly under the radar. But when you start doing things like this, I feel like you're going to bring like the Green Berets or, Navy SEALs down on your butt. So I just think they're going to cross the line. It's going to open up a whole nother can of worms for them.
Yeah. But at the same time, you think about it, most of the time if it was, we have your information, pay us, the corporations are trying to keep that under the rug. You think these corporations now want to go file a police report to say that someone's threatening them because they got ransomware?
And their CISO is going to quit in like 2 weeks after this happens, and then you got to hire another CISO. How's that going to go?
Right. And that police report becomes public record. And now it's on record that, all of this information, like, you got hacked, and now the hackers are now threatening you, when usually they try to put it under the rug with their lawyers.
But these are the kind of things you want to plan for. The kind of things also, as you're building out, we call it resilience. And it's one of the top things in this particular article. But, it's just having the resilience in your business to be able to withstand these kind of things. And it's not just getting Okta, and then you're done, and it's not just getting SentinelOne, and then you call it good. It's a lot of things. It's a full approach. And the whole idea is to limit a blast radius when something happens. And maybe it's preventing something like we're talking about here. Maybe it's how you deal with it if something like this happens. So,
and just like, this is a good time for any CEO, business leader watching this to pause and go, what team do I have around me advising me on this stuff? Like, if you're not getting this level of conversation in your ear at some point, you might want to turn to a third party, or, a more, somebody who has a little bit more detail in this lane than maybe your typical IT person does, right? Because this stuff has gotten so crazy that if you don't have a specialist advising you in some way, you're going to have gaps in your incident response plan. And the only time that you're going to figure it out is when you actually have to use it, right? And like, your plan's going to not have anything in there about what happens when these hackers start threatening you or your employees directly, like psychologically, or they physically start showing up in places where you go, right? And how are you going to handle that, right? And that's not something you want to be figuring out on the fly, right? So as crazy as it sounds, developing a relationship with a physical security company might be something that you might want to have if you are a high profile company that might be attacked in this way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right, guys. So let's wrap up the show here. As we talked about earlier in the show, Randy helped us out with these personal AI agents that are starting to introduce this silent data risk and regulatory exposure. And then Andre brought us a discussion around modern extortion groups who didn't need sophisticated hacks to do what they did, but exploit businesses using pressure. And then I talked about how ransomware is crossing into physical threats and forcing leadership to rethink responsibility. So if you're running a business, takeaway is simple. Cyber risk is no longer abstract. It's operational, it's legal, it's financial, and now it's personal. If you want more of this stuff, make sure you hit subscribe, leave a review where you're listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform. Share this episode on social media with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to support the show directly, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Security Squawk. For Randy, Andre, and myself, we'll see you all next week. Stay safe out there. Take care.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.